Jesus loves you. Jesus loves you. What a weird way to start a live stream. Jesus loves you. To all my gay friends, Jesus loves you. To all the criminals out there, Jesus loves you. To all the poor, the sick, the disabled, Jesus loves you. You know who Jesus didn't love? Do you know who Jesus showed contempt for? The Pharisees. Jesus loves you, but he showed contempt. He said, yo, Pharisees, you're sus, as the kids say. The only time you see Jesus irate, flipping over tables in the Bible is when they turned his father's house into a marketplace. You could say Jesus is like, we have Captain America. He's like anti-captain capitalism. Anti-cap. Captain anti-capitalism. There we go. Hey, what's up, Jacob? No worries. Good to see you. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. But for most people, Jesus loves you. For certain people, Jesus has a long woe to the Pharisees speech for you. He called them a den of vipers, empty, whitewashed tombs. I mean, Jesus had a couple of speeches where he went all out. He I love Jesus, reading Jesus's words. So remember that if you're any of these sins or things that people say, in modern society, uh, that they might have an issue with you, especially the people in the church, like the Joel Osteens, um, any of the Bible Belt people, if they say they got an issue with you, just know Jesus loves you. He especially loves you. Who Jesus had a problem with were the people who were exercising their power. He was a revolutionary. But he had a real issue with the Pharisees who were lording their spiritual religious power over people and collecting money from them. He had a problem with the people who turned his dad's place into a marketplace. They started selling stuff in the church on Sunday. All right, Jacob. We'll see you when you get back. So I just wanted to point that out. Because anybody who's talking Jesus should be saying that Jesus loves you. But most likely CEOs, Jesus didn't like. CEOs are kind of like the modern day Pharisees. And it's interesting to see religious people, or people who claim to be religious, align with these CEOs. Because we're going to talk about Bill Burr addressing. I love that Bill Burr was like, I don't know who Ben Shapiro is. And if you don't know who Ben Shapiro is, Ben is a right-wing and alt-right commentator. He's a big hypothetical. Ben Shapiro bases all of his arguments on how he feels. And this is just what he has stated. Like, this isn't controversial. He's done interviews where he says, you figure out how you feel and then you find things to back your logic. But a lot of his stuff, like the reason he went really viral was because H Bomber guy was like, Ben, you're saying if climate change wipes away coastal homes, they'll sell their homes. To who, Ben? Aquaman? That's because a lot of Ben Shapiro's whole MO, his modus operandi, what he's known for, is debating college kids, which I guess how old is he, 40? I mean, could you imagine if I went and just debated college kids and I was like, dunking on you? It's like watching LeBron James. Imagine LeBron James does a worldwide tour where he's like, I come to your high school and fucking beat the whole team. Like, and people would pay tickets and they'd be like, these 15-year-olds are getting their tray cleaned by LeBron. Oh, they're getting owned. That is, yes, yes, Scott. Scott, we have some intelligence in the chat. Ben Shapiro's whole thing, if you watch him, and if you haven't, just so you know, I'll sum up his whole thing. He goes, let's say, and then gives you some obscure statistic that's outside of the context, okay? His whole thing is let's say. That's his nickname. I believe in circles they call him Let's Say Ben. Old Ben Let's Say. That's his whole thing. His whole thing. And it's stupid. He's what dumb people think is smart. So now that you understand who Ben Shapiro is, it was pretty funny to hear Bill Burr go, I don't know who he is. Because people on the right think some 40-year-old guy dunking on college kids is like, they're like, this is the high intellect debate bro content we need. Like, I don't get any of that. Like the Charlie Kirk, like all these guys that are way past their college prime, going back to college to dunk on freshmen. To dunk on the fresh fit. Like, I always just looked at this as like, these are the college kids that spent a couple years in college, or maybe didn't go to college but were college age, and came back to the high school and like dated the girls and went to the prom with the high school girls. I always thought it was creepy, even in high school with the guy. I didn't say it to him. I was terrified. I was like, yo, I don't know. This guy has a 8 o'clock shadow. Like, will he kill me in his work truck? But these were the dudes that went back to high school and went to prom with high school girls, even though they were clearly like, you know, this was like questionable. But again, this is the party of, this is their thing. So I always thought, you know, their debate tactics of going back to dunk on college freshmen was weak. You didn't see Noam Chomsky going, you know how I'm going to display my full intellect? I will go to high schools around America and slam dunk on all these righties. But somehow that's peak intellectualism in right circles. Which shows you where we're at. So Bill Burr, who is a comedian, who by his own admission, sort of sat on the fence. That's why I stopped listening to him. Because I'm like, if you're sitting on the fence, there must be nothing in your nether regions. Because that's got to hurt to sit on a fence. All the centrists that just, you know, kind of let the oppressors have their way with them. The people who like to be exploited. Bill was kind of doing that. But I knew Bill at heart because I've been listening to him since he started the podcast. Bill, and I hate saying a lefty or a righty, there are just some people that have compassion and common sense that go, oh, the richest people in the world want a tax break while taxing the poorest people in the world. That's not good for, you know, society. So yeah, if you want to call it a lefty or whatever, okay. I guess if you're working class and you hate the left because they don't want rich people to have more tax breaks, and okay, whatever box you got to put people in to make, you know, life make sense to you. But Bill just wasn't that, okay? Bill's from Massachusetts, a working class town. You know he's got working class roots. He's married a black woman, which some people think that has some influence on him, which of course it's going to, but I don't think who he is as a person was changed because of his wife. I think they grow together. But to hear Bill Burr, comic, who I was very proud of Bill to be the first masshole in space in the Star Wars galaxy. That was a shining moment for me because I thought the Star Wars universe has all these different accents, dialects, lexicons, all these things I don't understand, right? I don't even know. There's the Jawa, there's the Wookiee, there's the Bebops, the Beboop, the R2-B2 droids. There's all the, like, people speak robot in space. And I was like, there's no Boston accent. And Bill Burr brought it there. If you haven't seen Bill Burr in The Mandalorian, phenomenal job. So that was a shining moment. The Star Wars fan that I know, the Star Wars nerd of my life, I texted him, I said, finally, it's happened. The masshole accent has gone to the Star Wars galaxy. I was very proud of Bill for that. But right is right and wrong is wrong. The truth is the truth. And that will set you free. Ooh, I like it, Malik. I like that. And we're going to address the CEOs should live afraid. A quote from Ben Shapiro, out of context again. I'm just doing Ben Shapiro's work. Because if you just read the quote, CEOs should live in fear. Technically, Ben did say that. I'm just exerting the rest of the sentence. I just extrapolated it from the rest of the sentence to take it way out of context. Just like Ben Shapiro likes to do with his facts, even though most of his stuff is based off of how he feels. So we're going to get to that. But I just wanted you to understand who Ben Shapiro is, a fraud, and that Bill Burr is a masshole with comedy roots. And he just looks at the world, you know, comedians, they make sense of usually the taboo, and they basically bring things to a lowest common denominator for everybody to understand and put the spin, the perception, they they have a take that usually nobody else does, and it makes it funny. That's what Dave Chappelle is known for. You know, he could start a story one way and you just don't see it coming. You know, that's where bad comedy is. Bad comedy is you can see it coming from a mile away. So that's who Bill is. And Bill has been making the news a lot, but I mean, this is how you know Bill, if you want to call him a lefty, and just someone who, you know, sees common sense and says this is how it should be. Bill years ago was saying the CEOs at Nestle, he was saying like those Nestle CEOs should be hunted down. He was like, they are buying all of the world's water. That if you're a human, I guess you could say, if you're someone that drinks water, that should be of high concern to you. People that are trying to own all the earth's water, the thing that sustains life. So Bill was saying that years and years ago. So it's hilarious that Ben Shapiro came out and said, "Oh, Bill was banking on the right." And that's how you really know, like, your audience isn't truly your audience if it depends on what they, you know, like they have to fit into the box of being right or left. Like your audience should be like a fan of you because of your content or whatever you're producing, you know. Um, but Ben, you know, said, "Oh, Bill went woke." He called Bill woke, which is silly on its face, because if Ben knew anything, this is how you know, like, Ben's just a moron and he's doing everything to basically, Ben is, you know, just trying to cash in. That's what you see a lot of these right-wing people doing. The people who are pretending to be a common man, who really usually had rich parents, never were working class, didn't grow up that way. A lot of them are pawning things off and selling you. They're snake oil salesmen. And you know that about Ben, because if Ben had paid attention, if Ben truly was a Bill Burr fan, he would have understand that, if anything, Bill started teetering more towards the right. That's why he was sitting on the fence. He was self-describing, like he likes to defend both sides. And now, apparently to Ben Shapiro, he's gone full woke. Well, Ben, I hate to break it to you, buddy. Bill was woke years ago, saying the Nestle CEO should be hunted down. And it's good to see there are trolls. Scott, you're clearly just a troll. You're not a serious person. But Ben, not understanding that, you know, Bill Burr was on some late night show and got almost a standing applause because he said all these the Nestle CEOs should be hunted down like it's pure evil, is calling Bill woke. And Bill's response was, "I don't know who that guy is," which is, I don't think Bill meant that to be funny. He was just stating, like, I don't know who he is, but that's hilarious. Just like, I don't even know who this dude is, but he called it perfectly. He said, Ben Shapiro called me woke, me Bill Burr woke, because he knew that would make him more money. He knew using Bill Burr's name, this is a thing people do on YouTube. They use someone's name, put them in, like, you know, they all do it with, or did it with Mr. Beast forever. They would put Mr. Beast in the title. That's why you saw all these YouTubers who eventually grew to be Mr. Beast wannabes, like a poor man's Mr. Beast, like a not 200 million subscriber Mr. Beast. They were all doing videos where, like, I try to give Mr. Beast a coin. I try to give Mr. Beast a piece of wood I whittled for him. Like, that's how you saw a bunch of those Mr. Beast stalkers on YouTube, because they knew with that name in the title, with that hashtag, they would garner some attention. And Bill basically said that about Ben. He said, if he just called me woke, all the people who are terrified of being woke, which, if you think of what that means, being awake to what's going on around you, to be aware to what's actually happening, you'd figure the people who believed in a deep state would want to be woke. They wouldn't want to be considered asleep. But hey, you know, the hypocrisy lives strong. This is the way. And Bill just said, you know, he called Ben a jerk off and said he just put woke in front of his name to get more clicks, get more money, which is very, very true. But in Ben Shapiro's dumb guy thinks it's smart retort to Bill Burr saying that, I'm glad, Bill Burr said after the United Healthcare CEO got murked, Bill said, good, it's good these guys are pussies. They should be scared. They're all taking their names and ranks and photos off their websites. They're all hiring privates, like they're terrified. And Bill said, good, they should be afraid. And Ben, his, again, what a dumb guy thinks is smart response to it was, oh, so Bill Burr thinks that if you don't run your company according to how he believes, then you should live in fear. And that's just not true, and that's not fair, because that's, again, what Bill Burr was addressing. Bill Burr was specifically saying the way you run your company is not murder. You're not murking people with a gun. You're murking them with ink and paper. And I just want people to consider, I don't know if anybody in the chat or if anybody that's going to stumble upon this video recycles. And I don't know if you recycle because someone forces you to. I don't know if you recycle because you think putting that yogurt top in the recycling is going to save a sea turtle. I don't know why you recycle. I'm curious. You know, you could leave it in the chat. But if you do recycle, is it because you care for the earth? We could go even deeper. I'm not a psychologist, but we could dig a little deeper and say, you know, maybe you're recycling because you're worried that if you're recycling, maybe you're worried that like certain parts of our earth won't exist. Certain animals are going to go away. You're worried about the repercussions, so you recycle. And again, what's up, Jacob? Scott is just a troll. I don't know. I'm just ignoring it. I can't. None of my mods are here, but Jacob, we got to get you a mod. You've been here enough. But I just got to ignore. There are people just in here. They're not serious people, and I'd love to have a real dialogue, but you just can't be, you know, engaging with every very unserious person. He's probably a Ben Shapiro fan, so he's very upset that, you know, anybody that challenges and doesn't bend the knee and kiss the rings, like these people, these America, land of the free people, get very upset if there's any kind of challenge to their status quo. Like, it's, again, hypocrisy. This is the way. But Jacob, I'm curious if you recycle. What I was asking people is if you recycle. We're talking about Bill Burr and Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro's false narrative that CEOs, you know, he was mad at Bill Burr, the comic, for saying CEOs should be afraid right now, which they clearly were. That's why CEOs were taking their photos, their rank and file off websites, their contact info, hiring security. They were terrified, okay? They were pooping their pants in their golden toilets. And I say, well, Ben, they should live in fear, not because of how they're running their companies, but that is part of it. And I boil it down to this. Yes, Alaska is a big recycle state. That's awesome. Listen, I've been recycling for a long time. My mom was ahead of the curve. Before they had recycling bins and stuff, she was all for it. In fact, my mom wouldn't let me have juice boxes forever because she was like, do you know how much waste that produces? Again, this is the late 80s, 90s. But she hated juice boxes. My mom hated Nickelodeon because of the slime. She was like, they waste so much food and slime, which could be meant to feed kids. Now, you got to understand, my mom was dirt poor, okay? So she saw the world, and maybe this is where you get my point of view from, because raised by a mother who had absolutely nothing, who was an orphan, who was dirt poor, she saw all this excess as waste for being able to feed people. In a country that prides itself on being the richest in the nation, we certainly got a lot of hungry and poor kids, 1 in 5. So anyway, so Ben Shapiro is saying Bill Burr is woke and out of line for saying CEOs should live in fear because they're businesses, right? That's basically what Ben says. And I say, well, if you recycle, if anybody recycles, we could say that you're, again, I don't want to assume. That's why I'm saying I ask, why do you recycle? Why? You know, what are you recycling for? What is your belief behind it? If you say, my wife makes me do it, my husband makes me do it, my kids make me do it. Okay. Why are they making you do it? Are they worried about the repercussions of Earth? That's what I'm getting at. Are they worried that animals are going to die? They're worried that Earth isn't going to sustain itself. Do they have a concern about something outside of themselves? This is technically when people go, oh, you're some woke lefty. It boils down to this. You have a concern about something other than yourself. So why do you recycle? Because if you recycle to, like Jacob said, to do your part to ensure that everything is better for everybody else, and you think me recycling this plastic water bottle, even though Nestle's making 1 billion of them a day and they're filling landfills and there's ocean islands of trash. Yeah, we're the ones that are on the hook for it, right? It's not Nestle figuring out, using their profits to figure out a sustainable source. Anyways, that's a whole different diatribe I could go into. But my point is if you as a human are doing it in concern for the environment, for others, for animals, for anything, then guess what? You too believe CEOs should live in fear. Because now let me draw the parallel. CEOs, especially the ones in the health insurance industry, these people operate off deny, defend, depose. They operate off denying people access to healthcare. This is not something I'm going to teach you about. You need to really look into all of the human suffering. I've experienced it myself, and I'm sure you have. Maybe a loved one, maybe your parent, maybe your child. I hate reading stories about mothers with children on that have disabilities, that are on these disability programs, and they're trying to get a new wheelchair. I cited it a while ago, and I gave the link in a live stream a few weeks ago. But this mother who had to go to court for 2 years to get her son a new wheelchair, her son with a disability. And their whole goal was to run out her clock so they didn't have to do it. And they'd rather spend court costs than just pay out the insurance. So these CEOs who operate on denying people healthcare, that was their motto. Before it was written on bullets, you know where he got it? From their company policies. So remember, these people have operated on denying people healthcare. Denying people, and just to understand, so we're all at an even playing field, what healthcare is society and humanity's cumulative technological advances and intelligence in the field, our education, our information, our learning, a collective from the dawn of fucking man till now, just so we're all aware that these insurance companies didn't create any of these cures. They didn't make the doctors. They didn't develop the procedures. They weren't in the Civil War creating, the Red Cross. They're just the gatekeepers. So now that we're all on the level playing field, that healthcare, the industry that keeps humans healthy, has made us start living, instead of dying at the ripe age of 28. But here in America, even though we pay so much for healthcare, our age is dropping off. Our life expectancy is going down. So that should tell you something else. But just so we're all aware, healthcare is from Jesus, and he loves you, unless you're a CEO, which is the modern day Pharisee. Then he's got some harsh words for you. Read his Sermon on the Mount, the woe to the Pharisees. But healthcare is, since the first caveman stubbed his toe on a brontosaurus and said, ooh, if I put this plant on it as salve, that information that has been passed down, that is our healthcare. I think it's 1 in 4 medicines, modern day medicines in the West, is made from some kind of plant in nature. That's why the rainforest is so valuable, because we get cures from there. That's why cannabis is a medicine. I wonder if cavemen back in the days had some type of healthcare system. No, they didn't, because they would have put a stone on the dude's head right away. If he was like, I have all plant that heals, they would have been like, get him. They'd be like, he can't own it all. They would have been like, get him. Fred and Barney would have clobbered him. So no, they didn't. Easy answer. Thank you for the question. So now that we all understand what healthcare is, what medical advancements are, they're most of the time government funded, but a lot of the times they are a collective of society, and the smartest, and sometimes accidental, and sometimes just whatever. This is something we've all as a society deemed important. But these CEOs have gatekept it. They are the ones that says, deny it. Prove to me that you're in a coma and the doctor really needs to give you life-saving. These are real stories. Doctors are saying them. My wife's a nurse. I've seen her come home very hard days for her when insurance has denied further payment and they have to leave a medical facility which is vital for their life. So now that we understand where we're at, Do you know the guy who made Roundup Weed Killer was the same guy who uses weeds for medicines he sells? Oh, Jacob, I believe hypocrisy is the way. And unless you see through it, which hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. I hope to educate, bring some conversation, have some dialogue on this. Um, believe it was dandelions. Yeah, I think that's dandelion sounds correct. When I was a kid, me and my siblings would put them in tea. We were sick, and it helps. Yes, dandelion. Um, Also, in the Great Dust Bowl, I think during the Great Depression, they were making dandelion salad, um, which sounds disgusting. And there's a YouTuber who was making it with her grandmother, and she was like, "This is what we used to go around and collect because we didn't have food." Um, but interesting stuff, Jacob. I feel like we just went down a Joe Rogan tangent. That's what made Joe Rogan lovable. He'd be like, you could make dandelion tea, and I bet that works, and that's what Big Pharma doesn't want you to know. And it's like, well, yeah, but stop talking about it with billionaires. Fuck those guys. In a world of Joe Rogans, be a Bill Burr. So let's bring it back to Ben Shapiro saying, defending CEOs, saying they should not live scared. But I say, if you recycle and have any concept of why you recycle, like, because you thinking of something other than yourself, you're like, I don't care if I die soon, throw my trash everywhere. I've seen those people. I've been driving down a road and saw some dude just take a bag of chips and throw it over his shoulder. And believe you me, I yelled out my window. I was so livid. I was like, hey, man, this ain't the 70s. Get a fucking clue. There's a lot of animals going extinct, and it's partially your fault. Mostly Nestle's fault. But anyways, so Ben defending the CEOs. It really shows how dumb Ben is, because if you just take that argument on its face and you go, well, if CEOs' whole policy is to deny people the medical advancements that us as a civilization have strived for, you got to think throughout all of humanity, people have always been looking for the fountain of youth. That is like a mythic lore. And why? Not so they could get less healthy. It's because they all want to be healthy. So through our entire civilization, people have been seeking medical advancements. That's why the makeup industry is so huge, because women just want to look a day younger. Never mind a fucking year. If you could just promise a woman she look as young as yesterday. I always like to joke when my younger kids, the kids in their 20s put on makeup or use youth regenerating things. I go, oh, you look awesome. You look like the day you were born. That's how young you look. It's absurd, but listen, this is what it is. This is what we as humans want. We want to figure out a cure. I mean, let me just say this to you. Squeaky Wheel, what's up? My dad used to make dandelion wine. Ooh, that sounds fascinating, and I believe it. That is wicked fascinating. Dandelion wine. I am Squeaky Wheel. Thanks for the info. You should do a whole YouTube video if your uncle's still alive, which I hope he is, with him and have him show you how to make it. That's going to go viral. Well, probably not. It'll get drowned out by Mr. Beast's 20 video saying, I survived 7 days in a prison. That's my impression of Mr. Beast. But listen. But these medical advancements, something that we've worked absolutely being gatekept. And I say that just like recycling, just like caring, or, if, like I was going to say, if you're somebody who wants to see a cure for cancer, well, guess what? If we got that cure for cancer, I hate to break it to you, it would not be available to everybody with cancer. It wouldn't. Why?